It's time to get nerdy, y'all.
A little bit of gaming history for you.
Something relevant in gaming and discuss our opinions on it.
Should we kick it out of here, or should we kick start it?
This is the part where you, the listeners, try to stump the hosts.
I'm not a lawyer. I just play one on a podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is Monday, December 29th, 2025. And you know what that means. It's time to get nerdy, y'all. Welcome to episode number 364 of Two Nerds in a Pod, the nerdiest video game podcast in the galaxy. I am Lam, also known as Mr. Nice Guy, and I'm joined by my bestie, my brother who brings the most from a different coast, also known as Maction. Mac, how are you, buddy?
I am doing pretty darn well, saying howdy from the West Coast. Mr. Nice Guy, it is good to see you, my dude. Holidays and everything. Did you get up to anything fun or exciting over the past couple of weeks?
Typical holiday stuff. We have one of my cousins comes over and hangs out, which is always awesome. For about a week and a half during the holidays. So we went out and did some stuff. The one thing we did this year that we haven't done in years past is we went up to this place called Sunburst here in Wisconsin. And it's basically like a ski snowboarding place, but also it has tubing. And so for like $30, you can tube for 3 hours. So we went and did that and just had a blast. And, you know, Mac, if I didn't already have enough midlife crisis hobbies, seeing the people snowboarding down this beginner hill made me want to go get a used snowboard and get back at it.
Yeah?
I've been once or twice in my life, but it looked super fun. And more important than that, man, honestly, just time with the kids. Santa came, had a really, really good time and created some memories with family, Christmas movies, all that. How about you, man? What'd you do over the past couple weeks?
You know, mostly just relaxed.
Love it.
Got up to nothing really good. You know how sometimes, I'm sure you know, Mr. Nice Guy, but like sometimes you think you feel a little cruddy, like you're not full on like, oh, I'm sick, I can't go anywhere, but you feel just a little hint of a something or other.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Absolutely.
So over the holidays, even though we didn't really have anybody over, so like nobody got us sick or anything like that, I feel like I might have caught something that was going around or whatever and just didn't feel 110%. And so mostly we just, stayed at home, tried to do little things here or there, watch some things, read some books.
That's the best, dude.
A cozy winter solstice to ourselves.
Nice. Love it, dude. In the name of, I don't even have a good transition right now, I'm not going to lie. In the name of doing what we do every week and doing this podcast, I say we transition into the gaming news. What do you think about that, my friend?
Absolutely, Mr. Nice Guy. I'm out of the loop. What's new in video gaming?
Dude, there's some new stuff. There's some old stuff. There's some red stuff. There's some blue stuff. There's a lot of really cool stuff to talk about this week. Welcome to episode 364 of Two Nerds in a Pod. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Mac, this first one is a topic that I don't think we've ever really broached before here on the pod, but I think it's something that we both probably have some pretty strong opinions about in terms of the size of games. This is by Zach Zweisen on Kotaku.com, written on December 2nd. Zach writes, so it's a little bit old, but it's been updated. Here's what Zach writes. So this is about Helldivers 2, first of all. It's about the new install size being decreased. Zach writes, PC players have been annoyed about the massive amount of room the game took up since launch. Helldivers 2 is a solid version of Sony's 2024 online co-op shooter. However, one significant flaw of the PC port was its massive installation size, which took up 150 gigabytes of space and was approximately 3 times larger than the game on console. Arrowhead promised this would be cut down, and a new update does just that. On December 2nd, they posted a detailed post about how they've changed it, blah, blah, blah. Mac, here is the Reader's Digest version. The installation size on PC has been reduced from approximately 154 gigabytes to around 23 gigabytes. That's over 130 gigabytes slashed, which is wild. Now, here is how they did it, and I think this is the most important part.
Yeah.
Arrowhead thanked support studio Nixxes, which apparently helped get the size down to a small amount. So why was it so big? Here is the reason why. Helldivers on PC supports both solid-state drives and older mechanical hard drives. In an effort to keep load times down and make Helldivers 2 more optimized, Arrowhead included redundant and repeated files so that older drives that still spin tiny platters and seek out data wouldn't be bogged down as much. Does that make sense, that explanation?
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. So here's my question for you. Going big in the beginning and going small is a common thing in the industry. Regular Nintendo Switch, then Switch OLED halfway through, that's much, much smaller. iPhone comes out, and then, 2 years later, they're able to make it much smaller with a smaller battery, and it's more compact. Do you think that it's actually possible for these companies to do this day one, and it's a psychological marketing thing? Or do you think that it's actually improvements in technology and research that allow them to cut down the sizes of games for one, or of hardware for two?
I think it isn't possible quite from the outset in a lot of cases. And I think some of that might have to do with things on the hardware side, stuff like tooling, right? If it turns out that something's not quite as popular, then maybe you don't have the specialty production line to make your things even smaller. Whereas if something turns out that you've got plenty of demand for it, you can make a revision or a second one that maybe is even more compact. And of course, people like to see on a refresh, some improvements, some changes, and smaller is something that most people like, especially if we're talking handhelds. But sorry, I'm getting far afield, Mr. Nice Guy.
You're good. We can talk handhelds, we can talk console, whatever.
Well, that's the thing. Hardware, software, all of it. I find it difficult to believe that a lot of video games that ship with such enormous sizes of their stuff needed to be that way on day one.
Yes, I agree.
And I find this a little bit surprising. Now, I appreciate their explanation because that does kind of pass the smell test. Because while it does not take insane amounts of seeking time in order to access data on different parts of a spinning disk or hard drive platter, it is something that could potentially be non-trivial. I know that back in the day, there is this amazing story told by the people who put together the game Myst, which had music that would play throughout. And they described the lengths that they went to, because it was, a normal CD spinning in a CD drive in a computer, the lengths that they went to in order to place the data regionally on the disk close enough so that it was easy to quickly go to a new scene in the game without having to skip off of the data that was playing the soundtrack.
Sure.
And how they had to they had to do a lot of finagling there. And so some of the same principles exist.
100%.
It shocks me that many, 130 gigabytes of data was mostly redundant. That seems bonkers to me. How many extra copies? If it was 150 and they cut 130... I have not done math in quite some time, but it's like
let's do some math real quick.
You're telling me there were 7 additional copies of the game data? 6 or 7 additional copies of the game data so that you didn't have to bounce around seeking it? That is wild.
Well, and that was on the PC version. So here's where the console version was much smaller. Here's where I'm going to be a cynical old man, and this is where maybe I disagree with you a little bit.
Yeah.
I think that some of this is intentional.
Okay.
Whether it's through laziness or whether it's on purpose that people are making things bigger than they need to be. And let's talk strictly about software for a minute.
Okay.
We think about a Call of Duty. Yes, it's a big game. Yes, there's a lot of content. But having Call of Duty or multiple Call of Duty games on your console taking up space does a couple things. Number one, it makes it harder for you to have space for the games of their competitors. If you really, really want to have this year's Call of Duty and last year's, and you keep it because you don't want to have to delete it and re-download it, I mean, that keeps it front of mind, and it also literally takes up way more space than it needs to. Those games are so big, I can't believe that even with texture packs and all the things that are going on, that they couldn't somehow cut down the size of the files. The other thing that it does, and this is where the conspiracy theory is like, this is not me fully believing this, but it may be a possibility, is that hard drive space costs money.
Sure.
When you look at release dates of consoles and you look at the different tiers that are available, sometimes there's a game or two thrown in, sometimes there's a controller, but a lot of the pricing is based on the size of the hard drive. And so it's almost advantageous for game companies to make bigger games in terms of Sony and Microsoft then being able to, one, get you to buy that more expensive tier, or two, pay extra money to expand your hard drive. Because it's all taken up because of all these big games. Making them smaller doesn't benefit anyone other than the gamer who is the consumer. And so I get this is very, very tinfoil hat, but I think that it's a very real possibility from a marketing perspective that it could be a ploy to get more money, at least in some cases.
I wouldn't say tinfoil hat, Mr. Nice Guy. I think that there are certainly people who benefit and people who are in a decision-making capacity who benefit more from that. But,
yeah,
I don't think it's that tinfoil is all I'm saying.
Yeah, and then, I mean, of course, there's the updates that come. Now we have season passes for games, and so you have to give us a 5 gigabyte update, every 3 months, every 4 months. And it doesn't delete the old stuff, or it's just additional content that's taking up more space. So I applaud the Helldivers team for looking into this and cutting down the size, especially on PC, where that argument doesn't even matter as much, right? Because I feel like in PC space, hard drive space is much more easy to access than in the console space. You got to take your console apart or buy an external or do all types of things. So yeah, I think it's interesting, and I'd love to hear the viewers' thoughts. Hit us up, let us know. Mac, next news story. There's so much cool stuff to talk about today. The next one is about Call of Duty also. We use them as an example, but it's about cross-platform play and ports and that type of thing. So I want to hear your thoughts. GameSpot.com, written by Eddie Makic. Microsoft has said it's committed to bringing Call of Duty to Nintendo Switch, and it could be coming as soon as next year. Reporter Jez Corden said the first COD Switch is nearly done. He added that the game, whatever it is, will launch in a few months. In another post, Corden said that the release may not be close, but it's on the way for a 2026 release. That doesn't really make sense to me. He added that the game is hitting milestones, which is a reference to how a game is proceeding through development. It remains to be seen if the reported Call of Duty game for Switch is a port of an existing Call of Duty game like Black Ops 7 or Warzone, or a new title. In 2022, Microsoft Gaming CEO Phil Spencer said there was definitely work to be done to get Call of Duty running on Switch. Since then, Nintendo has released a more powerful Switch too. We don't really need to read much more than that. And I know you're not a Switch owner, but you are a Steam Deck owner. Do we feel that, first of all, it's a fact that in the past, Nintendo has kind of shied away from some of these third-party games due to the lack of power that existed in their hardware. With the relevance of gaming PCs, is there really a need for Nintendo to hop into this market now? Who benefits from this, and does it make sense for the community at all?
Oh, man, great questions. And Nice Guy, I wish that I had a better idea of the, shall we say, demographics, where the overlap is between these various groups. Like, how many people who play Nintendo were really hoping for Call of Duty? How many people who were interested in Call of Duty would Nintendo be their only way to access it? I feel like we have seen over the years that a lot of people, because of an exclusive title, have maintained a relationship with one type of console over another. And I think Call of Duty has been, for many years, has been a driver of that. Obviously not quite as much anymore. But yeah, I don't know, Nice Guy. Who was clamoring for Call of Duty on the Nintendo?
And that's the thing I don't know. Now, I remember, and I could be wrong about this, so someone fact check me, hit us up with an email or let us know. Back in the day, I do remember Call of Duty Black Ops being available on the Nintendo Wii, I believe it was. But it was very much a watered down version of the game. It was cool because you could use the motion controls that came with the Wii. But things like certain what are they called? Kill streaks would not be available. Ones that were too massive in terms of memory uses or graphics, like the ones that had fire all over the screen, for example, wouldn't work because they didn't have the power to do that in that hardware. So I don't know that we're at that point where the Switch 2 is still so much weaker than the others that it wouldn't be able to run a Black Ops 7 without being watered down. And they haven't really said in this article if it's going to be a unique Call of Duty to that console or if it's going to be a watered down version of something that exists. My thing is, the only reason I was really, really big into the original Switch were two reasons. Number one was the exclusives. Number two was the portability. I would play a game like Dead Cells. I would play a game like Shovel Knight on the Switch simply because it was portable. Now I have a Steam Deck. So many people have portable stuff. I don't feel like this is needed, and I feel like Nintendo should put their time elsewhere.
I hear what you're saying, nice guy, but you have intrigued me. So I want to posit to you, since I know you are a bigger Call of Duty fan than I am. If there was a game that was going to be a Call of Duty game that was going to be available on the Switch 2, and let's say it was a brand new one, which of the sorts of genres of Call of Duty would you want it to be?
That's a good question, and I feel like for it to make sense, it would have to be the most recent one. And not because the other ones don't still have communities, but the biggest community is going to be in the most recent game. So I would say the most recent game. The other big challenge goes back to that conversation of hard drive space. Nintendo consoles simply have less console space, rather hardware space, hard drive space, than their competitors. And so the idea of having a Call of Duty that in 3 months or 4 months is going to need an update that takes up all of your space is just not something that a lot of Nintendo fans are going to want to deal with.
We've come full circle on the space issue.
We take it for granted, I think, Mac. You know, I know you have a PC, you have retro handhelds, you have the Steam Deck. I am someone who in my home has multiple pieces of hardware for gaming. Not everyone does. Some people may have a Switch. And I think that sometimes we and our listeners forget that. And so for those people, I hope you get Call of Duty. If you only own a Switch and you're hoping for it, that'd be great. I just think that the majority of people don't care about this, and it's probably not a good use of time.
Yeah. No, that's very fair, nice guy, and we shouldn't forget those people. Even if that just means that a handful of more people get a chance to experience Call of Duty, then it's probably worth it.
Yeah, 100%. Cool. Well, one last news story, Mac. This is about Arc Raiders, and this is not old news, but it's not new news, but it's recently come to the forefront again. Arc Raiders, I believe it won Best Multiplayer Game at the Game Awards. Fantastic. I love the game. It's a great game. But here's something that I want to talk about in terms of the longevity of the game and the potential longevity. As we talk about stop killing games, we talk about, do we really own games? We have that ongoing dialogue. This is from InsiderGaming.com by Andrew Heighton. Here's what Andrew writes. If you thought the hype for Arc Raiders couldn't get any bigger, then you should know how much Embark Studios values its new extraction shooter. A 10-year plan is already drawn up for Arc Raiders, so if you buy the game, expect a lot of content to be fired your way. It's been a while since an extraction shooter had this much hype and attention. Arc Raiders has taken the spotlight from Escape from Tarkov, and the game's build-up featured the Server Slam beta, blah, 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 blah. It just goes on to talk about how the lead, Virgil Watkins, and his team were asked about what the future holds, and they really, really believe, quote, I think internally for a long time, we referred to this as a 10-year game. This is the ambition we're aiming for, and that dictates the type of quantity and content we want to put into it. It says the design lead doesn't elaborate. Mac, my question for you, in a world where server space is not free, in a world where people's attention spans bounce around, and in a world where to keep a game going and a games as service is not a cheap thing, is it premature to announce a 10-year time frame rather than just doing it? What stance would you take if you made a game? You telling people, or are you just doing it?
I would absolutely tell people, because I think, especially over the past few years, we've seen a lot of games put out by AAA studios that have fizzled and gone away real fast. I think to let the community know that your plan is for this to be playable in a decade is a good, solid practice. It's a good idea. Now, obviously, there's no guarantee that ARC Raiders will go that distance for those reasons that you brought up, Mr. Nice Guy. I agree with you. Like, this isn't cheap to run a game in this style.
Yeah.
But it does fill at least some of us with some more confidence to know that, hey, your plan is to do it this way. And I like it. I approve. 10 out of 10.
So I get what you're saying. I really do. I don't like this.
Do you think that this makes people less or more secure in the game going forward? What am I not seeing, Nice Guy?
In terms of their purchase?
Yeah. I mean, do you think this is more harmful than helpful?
I won't say that it's harmful, but I think that it's a risk. I think it's an unnecessary risk when you quantify how long you plan on supporting a game for. Because there are too many variables of things that can happen. I mean, we're in an industry, or we're talking about an industry where layoffs are very, very frequent. Whole studios getting shut down, games being abandoned a week after release as Sony exclusives. So, I mean, I think that it's completely unnecessary to say we plan on doing this for 10 years. There's a roadmap. I would have said something from a PR perspective much more generic. We love the reception that we've gotten from ARC Raiders. We plan on supporting it for years to come, right? Or we plan on supporting it for the foreseeable future, right? And I get that that's much less definitive and that it makes people read between the lines, but then you don't back yourself into a corner of people making a purchase and then saying, hey, you said you were going to support this for 10 years, and now things happened out of your control that caused you to shut it down. Your studio got shut down. The community died down. Something else happened. 10 years from now, we're moving from PS5 to PS6 and Xbox Series X to the next one. And can you make that migration, right, and continue to have the game be successful? So I think that quantifying it was unnecessary. I don't know. Not the move.
I disagree with you for all those reasons and more, but we will have to revisit this in a decade to figure out whether or not it turned out to be good.
I hope it's still around.
Yeah, I hope it's still around, but I also hope that it gets people thinking about how they can support a game and how they can communicate that support to the people who like it.
And that's been our news for the week.
All right, well, now we turn a little bit toward the past. And Nice Guy, I've got a couple of things. The first one I did want to give a shout out, released in 2004 for the PC, a little game called Cave Story. Indiest of the indies, we know it, we love it, made by a single person who did all the music, the art, the programming, everything. A testament.
Nicholas.
Exactly, yes. A testament to game design and a testament to the indie spirit. Mr. Nice Guy, is Cave Story in your top 100 games of all time?
Ooh, that's tough. It's probably is. I would say it's probably even in my top 20 indies.
Nice.
And I'm a big indie player, like super great game, Metroidvania elements, but like side scrolling with guns, and just like cool dialogue, very, very endearing. Love it.
Yeah, I liked it too. Now, I don't know if I ever told you this. Somebody did do a port of Cave Story to the Sega Genesis. Have I ever mentioned that to you before?
I did not know that. You've never mentioned it.
It's fantastic. I've managed to throw it on a flash cart and play it on original hardware, and it was a fantastic experience. I don't think it had some of the stuff that we found in like the later PC stuff, but the base game, there and fantastic.
Love it.
Moving right along. Nice Guy, I've been thinking a lot about that adage. History doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. And I kind of want to encourage us all to think of how history rhymes, maybe with the game industry right now. I have a point. I promise. In preparation for this show, every so often, I'll check through old newspapers as I'm doing research for the show. It's one of the reasons why we did a whole feature on chip shortages, specifically on the chip shortages of 1988 in episode 217, because the front page of the New York Times in 1988, that day when we did episode 217, was indistinguishable from the story's front page of the New York Times in 2022 when we recorded that episode. So in preparation for this week, I actually found an article in the LA Times in 1986 about how video games were overcoming the computer craze and retaking their spot in the home market. What was quite interesting was this line, and I'll just give it a quote, "By the spring of '83, the video game depression had hit. The collapse was attributed to variously to plain burnout or the public's buying of home computers instead." End quote. And I think we have a little bit of a different narrative surrounding the, the issues of video games in 1983. Nice guy, I'll just ask, I think it's fair to say that the general narrative surrounding that whole period of time was Atari tanked the console market in 83, Nintendo saved it in 86 with the NES, right?
Oh yeah, 85, right? But yeah.
Yeah. As ever, Stephen L. Kent, one of the most respected video game historians, also has a take on it. And Lom, I sent you a few pages sent over from The Ultimate History of Video Games, published in 2001, and the narrative that Kent talks about in there. If you won't mind, I've sent you those.
Okay, so here's what it says. It says, Atari had deeply rooted problems that eventually infected the entire video game industry. During its heyday, Atari became top-heavy with marketers and other executives. With the continuing growth of video games, some executives began to believe that they could sell anything as long as it came packaged as a video game. Atari even released a video game version of the Rubik's Cube. We had a 24-inch and a 24 and 26-year-old MBAs running around making multi-million-dollar decisions. I said, well, you're going to have to help me understand why a $40 electronic rendition of this product is better than a $3.98 original rendition that is more portable and that I can take anywhere I want. When you can convince me of that, I'll be happy to consider this for international.
Sorry, I forgot to highlight one line. Rubik's Cube, the game, went on to be an incredibly bad disaster. Sorry, I didn't highlight that bit. Because he was just talking about, that was Stephen Race, who was the internet marketing and comms director at Atari, talking about, the MBAs being like, we gotta make this game of the Rubik's Cube.
Right, yeah. Just trying to turn everything into a game. It goes on to say, Atari manufactured 12 million copies of Pac-Man, even though the company's research showed that less than 10 million people actually owned and used its 2600s. Atari manufactured over 2 million extra copies on the theory that millions of people would buy the hardware just to play Pac-Man. Atari's problems continued with the production of E.T. Oh, we know this story, Mac. It goes on to say, Steve Ross called me. This is what Steve Kent writes. Steve Ross called me. He was very anxious to have Spielberg make movies for Warner, and he said he just made a deal with Spielberg to produce E.T. as a cartridge. He asked me what I thought. I said, I think it's a very dumb idea. We've never really made an action game out of a movie. And he said, I've also guaranteed Spielberg a $25 million royalty regardless of what we did. Now, to be clear, I don't know if that's Steve Kent talking there or if he's quoting someone else. It sounds like he's quoting Ray Kassar. So just want to give that clarification. It goes on to say, I asked Steve, when do we have to produce this? He said, for Christmas of 1982. This was in July when he called me, the end of July. I said, Steve, the lead time to produce a game is at least 6 months between the semiconductor deliveries and programming and all that. It's impossible. He said, well, you have to do it because I promised Spielberg we'd have it on retail shelves for Christmas. We had literally 6 weeks to produce a brand new game, manufacture it, package it, and market it. It was a disaster. I mean, the programmers hated it. Nobody liked the game. Then Ross, ordered us to produce almost 5 million of these games. I told him, Steve, that's crazy. We never make 5 million of a product until we have some market testing. He said, well, it's going to be a big hit because of Spielberg and E.T. So we made 5 million and practically all of them came back. That's Ray Kassar again. Goes on to say, riding on the heels of the Pac-Man disaster, E.T. was too much. Atari had managed to sell millions of Pac-Man cartridges, but the majority of E.T. cartridges remained in dead inventory. Atari tried to buy its way out of the hole by licensing top arcade games, often spending millions of dollars for the exclusive rights. Warner Communications Atari, which pioneered home video games with such classics as Space Invaders and Asteroids, had lost almost $356 million so far this year, dropped 3,000 employees from its payroll of 10,000. Plagued partly by sluggish sales of Intellivision games, the electronics division of Mattel has run a $201 million deficit in 1983. Mac, that's in 1983, dude. That's a lot of money now. In 83, that's crazy. He goes on to say, while laying off 37% of its 1,800-member workforce. Activision estimated that it lost $3 to $5 million in the past 3 months, despite scoring hits with its new Enduro and Robot Tank games. At Bally, the leading manufacturer of arcade video machines, profits are off 85%.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nice Guy. If we take the word of one of the greatest game historians, it seems to me that the take-home is that Atari didn't kill games because they made garbage games, but that the C-suite, or as he called it, the MBAs, the 24, 26-year-old MBAs, as they're called there, forced developers to make games that just weren't art. And it crashed because of those. Flopped games, flopped studios, flopped companies. And so in the overarching thing of history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes, just in passing, we mentioned how many games are going under, how many studios are going under, and things like that. Do you think it's possible that we're in a rhyme scheme with history, Nice Guy, and that a lot of the issues that we're seeing, could it possibly be that we've got some out-of-touch people who've lost track of games as artwork, and that's contributing to a lot of the layoffs and issues that we're seeing? That's
a really good question, and just like in sports, when people say, it's hard to compare eras of who's the GOAT, like, is it Michael Jordan, is it Kobe, is it LeBron, is it someone else? I think this is similar, because we're comparing a 1983 when the home console market wasn't nearly what it is today. And so I think that back then, for them to be taking those kind of risks was even crazier than it is for someone to be taking similar risks using a licensed movie product today, because just by the virtue of there being a much bigger market, you're going to sell more. But that said, I think there's truth to what you're saying. Like, I think that sometimes people are making rash decisions and they're saying we need to make X amount of dollars before the end of the fiscal year, so let's push this out before it is ready, right? So then it can at least sell.
Let's push the 150 gigabytes.
the big game that's bigger than it needs to be, or the poorly made piece of software that could use a little bit more time in the oven before they put it out. So I think there's some of that, but I also think that it was a different era back then.
It entirely could have been. I don't know, you and I weren't doing this show then. We weren't in the papers. We weren't collecting the stories. And history, of course, is hard sometimes to really nail down. But as I was reading through The Ultimate History of Video Games, I very much saw that moment, and I was like, this sounds familiar, or at least it sounds like Mac's tinfoil hat, Mac's biased view of what the industry looks like and where the problems are from, and couldn't help but seeing some parallels.
There's definitely some.
So for video game history, what I have to offer you is that Christmas 1983, E.T. comes out. A lot of people are not thrilled with it. And we have more information as to why, and I think it truly was not for love of the game. So don't forget in your gaming pursuits to always put the artwork first and let the passion lead. That's, perhaps maybe a lesson from history for us.
And those ET copies, Mac, I believe we know what happened to them. The ones that they printed that didn't sell, right?
Oh, yeah. And we'll talk about that in gaming history when they hauled them off to the landfills.
Sounds good. Well, now it's time for our topic of the week, a segment where we talk about something relevant in gaming and give our opinions on it. Mac, this is a news story that just came out today. And it's something that has come up before. And I think it's been more of like, Mac, what do you think if this was to happen? And we've kind of talked about it. Well, now a Sony exec is suggesting it. This is on IGN.com, written by Wesley Yin-Poole. Video game console sales cap out each generation at around 250 million. So how will the console manufacturers break through that barrier? By learning a crucial lesson from videotape format war, one former PlayStation executive has suggested. Speaking on the Pause for Thought and Naomi Kyle YouTube channel, Sean Layden, former boss of Sony Interactive Entertainment, said that console video game market has hit a limit and significant change is needed to expand beyond it. Quote, we talk about gaming being this $250 billion industry, which it is, and we have hundreds of millions of users, which it does. But of course, that includes if you're playing Wordle, you're a gamer. If you're playing Candy Crush, you're a gamer in that number. But the number of discrete consoles sold over any particular generation caps out at 250 million. If you line up all the PS1, Sega Saturns, and N64, and you go by generations, it's about 250. He says the one time it went up to 300 was when it was the Wii. Mac, let's get to what he's suggesting, because he uses this analogy that the videotape format war was a late 70s and 80s battle between Sony's Betamax and JVC's VHS for dominance in video home recording, with VHS ultimately winning due to longer recording times, broader licensing, and key partnerships with movie studios. And he says that they lost because of simply the manufacturing issues. Mac, I'm going to summarize. Here's his last quote that makes this article. People didn't understand the need of having the same machine as your neighbor. You can have an RCA TV and you can still have a Sony TV, and you know that's all fine. But once your neighbor has picked VHS and you want to watch that type of movie, but you have a Betamax, all of a sudden it didn't work. He's suggesting that we need one console that plays all the games, that we don't need a PlayStation, an Xbox, a Switch, a PC. We need one that does all of them, and that will potentially be a more profitable industry. It's more universal, much like the VHS and the Betamax, right? And that it will be a better thing for profits and for gamers. What do you think, man?
I mean, I'm not going to lie, that's not where I thought you were going.
Where did you think I was going?
Well, I thought he was going to advocate for greater cross-platform playability as being the way forward, rather than an actual unified one console to rule them all. That surprises me. And
to add, just so you can speak like with all the info, he's suggesting that we have a gaming format.
Wow.
Much like VHS was kind of like the broadly accepted format that ended up winning, he's suggesting we have a gaming format.
You know, it's crazy to hear something like that just because it's something that seems so very, very far away, unthinkable even. I cannot imagine a future in which Nintendo gives up their exclusive control. I mean, heck, Nintendo will come after you if they think you're making a fan game. I shudder to think of them relinquishing their tight control over a console in order to participate with the rest. And of course they still managed to do just fine. Oh man, what would that world be like, dude?
Yeah.
Now I'm imagining this sort of fun retro future where we carry around our little mini discs with our Steam library, our whole game library, plug it in, and then we're playing at the office computer or anywhere else, dude. I think it's an interesting thought. I don't know. I think we are too locked in, particularly with the players that are currently at the forefront and don't show any sign of yielding ground. Now, that's maybe a little bit different with the interplay between Windows and Sony these days. They're a lot more friendly than they used to be. But I see this being a long holdout by Nintendo.
I get what you're saying. The only thing I think is that we talked earlier, it's funny how we come full circle about comparing eras. He's literally using analogies of hardware that's so obsolete and of methods for using that hardware that is so obsolete. Like the idea of me taking a VHS to my neighbor's house and being like, hey, want to watch this movie? And then being like, oh, we don't have a VHS player, we have a Betamax. Like that conversation would happen, but it would be more like, why are you bringing a VHS to my house? Like, we're streaming now, right? No one is, I don't think that problem is really coming up where kids or or teens or whoever, adults, are going to their neighbor's house and saying, hey, I got this new game, you want to play it? And the neighbor being like, oh, I don't have an Xbox, I only have a PlayStation. That's just not happening, right? The other thing too is that we already have a universal gaming format, and it's called digital games. Maybe that's not what he meant, but it seems like he, like you and I, is still a big fan of physical hardware and physical software, I should say, owning your games and being able to hold them in your hand. And that's great. And if that's what he means by having a universal format, that's fine. But like you, I don't think Nintendo's going for that. I don't think Microsoft's going for that. And I definitely don't think Sony's going for that. The other thing I'd add, I think there's so many nuances between the hardware and between the ecosystems that I just don't think that gamers are willing to give that up yet. There's different controllers. There's different point systems. You have your friends list. We've talked about this stuff before. I just don't think we're there yet, and I don't think it would help the industry move forward as much as he thinks it would.
Yeah, quite possibly. Now, Galvatron has some thoughts, some quite passionate thoughts on the issue. I will alight over calling Sean Layden a corporate stooge. Yeah. But yeah, he does ask, do we really want to return to the tyranny era of the 1980s where Nintendo had the only viable console? And their uncompetitive practices. And, I think it's fair. Nintendo has always tried to be as locked down as possible, verging on the anti-competitive. It is the sort of thing where I don't know. In one respect, there are many different companies that make components for desktop and laptop computers. And there are fewer now. But there are options, even if there is a roughly unified, whether you're doing AMD or Intel, you can usually get stuff that will work. And maybe this kind of strange future of one gaming platform, one gaming console, might look something like that, where you could get individualized components. I don't know. It's such a foreign idea to me.
I mean, this is literally a whole episode, right?
Oh, yeah.
We have different types of cars for a reason. Competition makes all tides rise. The idea of Microsoft having bought up all these companies, they benefit greatly from a universal console. Right?
Oh, sure.
I mean, they're already benefiting from there being multiple, because now they're talking about putting Call of Duty on the Switch and making profits there, and doing the same thing with all their Bethesda stuff. So, there's a lot of things that go into this. What does this thing cost? Is there some type of agreement between the big three where they say, hey, we're all working on this, and then Steam is just off in the corner with their new PC that you can put up to your TV? Like, it just, to me, it's just not feasible. Is this a $1,500 thing that is upgradable? Like, it's just wild to think. And what do the dev kits look like when you have one studio doing things in 1080p and another's doing it in 4K? Like, it's just wild. There's a lot of variables here. I don't see this happening. That's my thoughts. Mac, what do you want to say before we move on?
All I want to say is that you've stumped me. I am slowly rebooting, trying to imagine the future of just one console.
100%. And that has been our topic of the week.
All right. Well, now we turn to a crowdfunding project that's trying to get off the ground. We call this Kick or Kickstart. Mr. Nice Guy, I've dropped a link in the chat. I don't have a lot to say about this other than a shout out to Alex Man for asking us to give our opinions on it. This is called Elevator. It's done by a group called Pixel Tail Games, who I believe in the past have done, I think Tower Unite is probably their most popular game, but this is a revamp of an older idea that they built on this Gary's mod, and then had a Source Engine thing called Elevator. They were looking for $27,000 to fund the project. They have blown past that, and it still has 15 days left to go. If you were interested in a copy of the game, $8 gets you a Steam key to it. and that is estimated to be released around this time, December of next year. So what it is it's an absurdist comedy horror multiplayer game that has the elevator goes to random different areas. They mention some of the floors are going to be things that you have to like go out, explore, and then return back to the elevator. At the end, you of course always end at the end at the penthouse. They've got some number of floors ready to rock and roll. And yeah, it's meant to be playable with up to 8 players, although they don't mention a minimum number of players. I'm sure you can do it with just one. Otherwise, it would be real tough to get a chance to try out well, I'll go for that later. This is not the first sort of absurdist comedy horror game I've played, but it does give me sort of Stanley Parable vibes in some way, where it's meant to be, a little wild and wacky. But I have to admit, I don't know if it's necessarily my thing. Now, Mr. Nice Guy, I don't know if you, back in the day, it would have been 13 years ago that they put out Elevator Source. But yeah, I don't know. Do you have any experience with these developers or with any of their previous titles?
I have no experience with them, but I will say just generally, I'm kind of impressed with what they're putting together here, with a few minor complaints. But it looks pretty good.
Yeah. All that being said, they do cite some games as inspiration for this that very much appeal to me. Half-Life, Portal, and such, but that does not necessarily, the inspirations do not necessarily a good game make. All that being said, what I think is definitely immaterial, they've blown past their funding goal. They are likely to be bringing something to market. And yeah, there is, of course, though, a playable demo, which certainly gives me a chance to try it out. It does look fine, but I have to admit, I didn't really catch the dream, catch the vision. It didn't appeal to me, and maybe it's because it was meant to be a multiplayer thing. So, and maybe that's where it really shines.
So here's what I really like about this, man. I'm arguing with Galvatron in the chat about console prices.
Galvatron, quit arguing. He's got to be on task.
I really think they have something here, and the reason why is they've created something that is going to be a multiplayer thing, but is reasonably priced. And we've seen success with games like this. There's several that come to mind, but the main one is Among Us, where you're charging less than $10 and you're saying, hey, you and 4 of your friends or you and some randoms online can play this game and just goof off, have a good time. And maybe it blows up because a few streamers get in on it and it gets a huge audience. But they're not trying to charge $19.99, with future promises of content. They're not even trying to charge $15.99. They're coming in well under $10. And I think that that's the sweet spot for stuff like this. That's not a deep experience, but that's really based on you having at least 3 other people to play it with. The one thing I don't like about this, Mac, is if you're going to do a Kickstarter, I just feel like you have to reward your patrons. Like, you can't be like, hey, we're charging you $8 at Kickstarter time and it's going to be $8 when it comes out. Like, you've got to do something to make it feel like people are rewarded for getting in on the ground floor and being early adopters.
For me, Mr. Nice Guy, I have to say I wish them the best of luck, but it just didn't click for me. I would say kick, not because I don't think it can go the distance or will go the distance, but just because it's not my thing. It sounds like a kickstart from you.
Yeah, man, I would give this a shot. I see no problem with it. And once again, success of games like Among Us and even Roblox, right? Like, Roblox is a thing where there's all these little mini games you can play with friends. That has become a huge thing in my household. And I didn't realize just how much kids like these little, I won't say poorly made, but these little like homebrew experiences that allow them to socialize while they play. So for $8, I think this is going to be good, and I say kickstart.
Well, we may be divided on this, but we are united in our belief that that we hope the best for Pixel Tail games. But that's just been Kick or Kickstart for you today.
100%. And now it's time for our next segment, a segment called Nerd Flex.
Woohoo!
A segment where you, the viewers, try to stump the host. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. And if you're here live, you have a job to do. Put a multiple choice question in the chat, video game related. Mac and I will use nothing but our noggins to try to answer it. Sometimes people like to have like 10 different options for the answer, and that's fine, but it just makes it kind of impossible for us to get the right one. All right, so the test bank is loaded. And here is the first question. It's a great question. Nintendo, which N64 Pokemon game is the only one never to be released in Japan? Which N64 Pokemon game is the only one never to be released in Japan?
Okay, the only N64 Pokemon games I know are Colosseum and Snap.
Yeah, Pokemon Stadium, I think, is what it was called, and then
Yeah, right, Stadium.
Yeah, and then Pokemon Snap. And those are the only two that I know as well. I would guess Snap, just because it's more unique and less traditional. I don't know if there's a card collecting one.
Yeah, and I'll guess Stadium. It's not multiple choice, so we don't have to unify. And I think, unless it's a third option that neither of us know, I think we got this.
Well, and the reason is I never played either of those, but I'm trying to think if Snap had like a peripheral.
Snap didn't. I've played Pokemon Snap as a party game. It's actually surprisingly fun to, try and do better on subsequent runs through the same area. But yeah, I'm guessing Stadium. I'm going to guess that, something about the Colosseum nature of it. I don't know. Maybe it was censored. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, Mac, I flipped the card, and we were both wrong. It was a game that neither of us knew existed called Pokemon Puzzle League. I did not know there was a Pokemon Puzzle League. I'm super interested to know why it was not released. All right, well, let's pull up another random question. Okay, we got a special round.
Nice.
And I don't believe we've ever done this one. If we have, correct me. Name two... One of them is very easy. But name two characters that use eggs as weapons. Name two characters that use eggs as weapon. There's one that's very obvious.
Yoshi. Thank you for leaving it there for me.
Yeah, I got you. The one that comes to mind, and I can't remember the name of it, you might be able to help me here, is Mario 2. That boss, the pink boss. That shoots the eggs at you and you jump on them and throw them.
Birdo, I think.
Birdo? Is that what Birdo? It's Birdo? Yeah, okay.
I think so. And now that I'm thinking about enemies instead of like characters, I'm thinking like main characters, but now I'm thinking enemies. There is an enemy in Mega Man 2 that it's a bird that flies over and drops eggs, and a bunch of birds, smaller birds come out, called Pee-Pee.
Okay.
And that's definitely...
Interesting name.
That does exceed the required 2.
I can't think of any more that use eggs. Other than, so in Donkey Kong, and I can't remember the name of this character, but in Donkey Kong, there's birds that drop eggs on you. Donkey Kong for Game Boy, Donkey Kong 94. And I think in the game, in the arcade version as well, there's eggs being dropped by some of the birds flying across the screen.
So I couldn't help but hear that Galvatron does try and help us out in the chat and mentions that in Resident Evil 4, and come to think of it, in Resident Evil 5, you can use eggs as weapons.
Really?
Yeah, you can throw eggs. So I highly doubt that would be considered a thing, but hey, I like it. Galvatron, appreciate the assist.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, cool. We've gotten two. So here's what it says when I flip the card. Yoshi, Chris Valentine, Resident Evil 4. Well done, Galvatron. And then it also says Banjo-Kazooie, which I didn't know Banjo-Kazooie used eggs. I didn't play a ton of Banjo-Kazooie.
Nice.
Well, cool. Mac, here is the last question. It's a Konami question. Who is the final boss in Konami's The Simpsons arcade game?
I've never made it to the end of The Simpsons arcade game. Surely it's not Mr. Burns.
I don't think it is. Mr. Burns steals Maggie in the very beginning, Mr. Burns and Smithers.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're the final boss. And I don't feel like it's a regular character. I feel like it's someone who was made for the game, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe Maggie's the final boss.
Or maybe it's was it Blinky, the three-eyed fish?
Blinky's from Pac-Man. You know what? For the sake of time, I'm gonna go Smithers. But I really can't remember what the boss is. Dude, we'll give this to you. It actually is Mr. Burns.
Oh my gosh! Okay,
because they kidnap Maggie in the beginning.
Yeah.
But I thought that was too obvious of an answer.
No, okay. Well, hey, not too shabby. As a team, 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
That ain't bad. That's been Nerdflex.
All right, now we turn to a little bit of legalese.
Legalese.
All right, what I wanted to talk about real quickly today is a little thing called Sony v. Tencent, or Light of Motirum. Now, we talked about this in episode 350 as the topic of the week and said that we would revisit it when we had some more news, and the other week we got it. But first, a thing that's notable about the legal process is that the plaintiff files their complaint. Complaintiff? And the defendant files their response. Respondent? I feel like there's something there. We'll work on it.
Yeah.
And I was hoping to read the response from Tencent because obviously the plaintiff was Sony, and then the respondent, the defendant, Tencent was supposed to file their response. And hopefully that would explain just how up in the night Sony was, because that's the nature of the responses. And we did get a very little bit of that, but mostly what we got was a filing in September of, and you'll have to forgive me, nice guy, I'm searching for the Latin term. Let's see, I believe is a motion for "You're not my dad, I'm not touching you, and stay out of my room, mom." Otherwise known as lack of jurisdiction, failure to state a claim, and lack of subject matter jurisdiction.
Nice.
Thanks. To drill down a little bit more on those, they were like, number one, you're not my dad. Basically, you can't tell us what to do because we're in China, baby, and we haven't released the game yet. And I mean, have you really pointed to any solid similarities? That's kind of the real, everything there. But the new development that we got was that there is a settlement, and a confidential settlement at that. So who's in the right? Who's in the wrong? We will very likely never know. And this ends the journey that we started back in episode 350. Light of Motirum pulled from shelves. Well, it wasn't even out on shelves yet, but to not be on shelves. And we don't actually find out whether or not all those things Sony said were in fact true, or whether or not they were creative legal fictions. So, yep. Sorry, nice guy. That's all I got for you for legalese.
Love it, man. Love it, love it, love it. Well, thank you for tuning in, everybody. Hopefully everyone had a good holiday season and is going to have some fun stuff going on New Year's. My New Year's, Mac, is going to be very relaxed. Chilling at home, snacks, movie, board games. But hey, before we go, one last thing. We like to talk about what we've been watching and what we've been playing, where we get into all the cool, nerdy stuff we've been into across all platforms. Mac, what you been into over the past... Oh, by the way, if you're here live, let us know in the chat what you've been into. But Mac, what you been into the past couple weeks?
So as for watching, I've mostly watched a Netflix series called The Residence. It's a whodunit. And because it was just sort of a whodunit week, we also watched the new Knives Out 3.
Ooh, how is it without spoilers?
I really, really liked it. I think you will too.
Love the first two.
And then as for playing, I mostly did a lot of playing of Cave Blazers and Mega Man X1 because I bought the Mega Man X Legacy Collection while it was on sale. Nice guy. I want to play your favorite series.
It's so good. I love Mega Man X.
Yeah, so I'm having a good time. Almost done with X1.
Nice.
And yeah, that's what I've been up to. What about you, dude?
Nice. So as far as watching, watched Thunderbolts finally. Hadn't seen it yet, Marvel's Thunderbolts. I really enjoyed it. Like, I felt like Marvel had kind of fallen off post-Avengers Endgame. I thought that was a really, really solid addition to the Marvel Universe, and I hope that they bring those characters back. Now rewatching the Captain America and the Winter Soldier Disney miniseries. And as far as playing, I haven't played a lot. I've barely picked up a controller. Mac, because I've been way back into the books. I've been way back into the reading and the fantasy and the nerdy stuff. So here's what I've read over the past couple weeks. I've read both the first 2 Dungeon Crawler Carl books.
Nice. You know what? I'm starting the new Dungeon Crawler Carl book. The first one. Oh my gosh. What
nice.
What wild.
Small world.
Yeah, small world.
Small world. Nice. Well, yeah, I really enjoyed the first and second. I read Steelheart by Brandon Sanderson. I read King of Ashes by S.A. Cosby. And I am currently, Mac, reading Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson and really, really enjoying it. And other books are in my TBR. But
Nice Guy was kind enough to gift me a copy for Christmas of Dungeon Crawler Carl.
Yeah, you're welcome. Anytime.
Not such a small world after all. Let's see. Galvatron's been watching Avatar Fire and Ash. That's the new one. Splinter Cell Death Watch. Wake Up Dead Man. That's Knives Out 3. One Battle After Another. And Wicked Part 2, and has been playing Balatro, Doom the Dark Ages, Ninja Gaiden 4, Ghosts of Yotai, Metroid Prime 4, Donkey Kong Bonanza, Ball X Pit, and Clover Pit.
Yeah, and I should have mentioned, thank you for the reminders. I actually have been playing Ball X Pit on the Steam Deck. And I have been playing the new Mario Kart as well. So, yeah. Well, Mac, why don't you take us home, man?
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody, for being here, for coming out to the show, or for listening after the fact. We appreciate it. We are closing out, hopefully, 2026 with this one, episode 364, and we hope we see you in the new year with episode 365 at the usual time, 7 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Central at twitch.tv/2nerds in a pod. Thank you for being you. Thank you for being awesome. And until we see you next time, remember, be excellent to each other and keep it nerdy.
Deuces.